Welcome back to Lesson 3, Structuring HTML Content. In this chapter, we'll be dealing with data, specifically data tables. When we're displaying tabular data, the table is absolutely the right choice in terms of a tag to use. Tables are a little bit more complicated in that there's a lot of elements that kind of contribute to the overall table structure. Here's a very simple table example containing two table rows or TR elements, each containing two table cells or TD elements. So the TR here in green forms the row, and the individual TD elements form the cells within that row. So this markup all taken together gives us something that looks like this. Using CSS, we can adjust how the lines look, the padding, all of that sort of stuff, but we get a very basic structure like this from this basic table markup. Now, in order to make our tables more accessible to users, it's suggested that we provide a caption, which is text about the table, inside of a caption element. This should come immediately after the opening table tag and should contain text, but it can contain HTML as well. We can also divide up the table into sections like headers and body using the T-head and T-body elements to define the table head and the table body. Each of these can contain multiple rows and columns. Tables can also have footers, which we use the T-foot element for, and this as well can contain multiple rows and columns. Interestingly, the T-foot element needs to come directly after the T-head element, and the reason for this has to do with printed pages in any sort of paginated medium. When browsers go to lay out a table, they typically want to repeat the head and the foot on every page. And the best way to do that is to be able to calculate that information ahead of time in order to be able to figure out how many of the T-body rows can be placed on a given page. For that reason, as counterintuitive as it sounds, we want to have the T-head element followed by the T-foot element followed by the T-body element. Now you can also have multiple bodies within a table. This would be where you want to group multiple rows together. Say they are all for a given year and you want to break it up by year and you have multiple years in the table. You could do a T-body element for each of those years so that those rows can be aggregated together. You could then take that further and use CSS to style each alternating T-body elements rows in a different color, or each row in different colors if you want to have nested zebra stripes. For additional accessibility, we want to identify certain cells as being header cells. And for that, we have the TH element, which operates very much like a TD, with the addition of having the scope attribute. The scope attribute gives us the ability to define which direction the table header is scoped to. In this example, we see 4 table header cells which are each scoped to the column. This makes sense as they're contained within the T-head element. Inside of a table body, we might have a T-head that's operating for the row, in which case it would be scoped to that row within the TR element. In both of these instances, when the content for the individual cells are being read out, the table headers which are scoped to be associated with that particular table cell would also be read out by assistive technology. In this brief chapter, we've covered how tables are used to mark up tabular data, that tables require at least one row, that we can group rows together in the table header, table footer, and table body elements, that the table footer needs to come before any table bodies, that you can have multiple T-body elements, and that our table header elements can be scoped to a row or a column in order to improve the accessibility of our pages. In the next chapter, we're going to look at longer quotes, figures, and accordions. I'll see you in a few minutes.